you been, man?
Good, man. Just rolling along, keeping busy.
This walk can be going.
Finally, back to school.
These were two big.
They had a rough morning.
Yeah.
Getting them up at first, but I heard they both
really?
took naps when they got home. They had a long day.
Don't even know. Okay, we ready?
Rock and roll.
Gracious. Rock and roll.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Thank you for joining us. Happy August, everyone. If you'll please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, remain standing for the invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to invite Pastor Leonard Akins, who's Associate Pastor to the local church, to deliver our invocation this evening. Welcome.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we give you great thanks for allowing us to be a part of this community. We are so grateful for all the ways that this community allows us to live, work, and play and have great, deep, abiding friendships. We're just really grateful. Lord, I pray over our city council and city government that they would have big ears to listen well to their community and that they would have great strength to respond in the ways that maybe you are calling them to respond, in ways that would be beneficial and helpful for all of our citizens. I pray over tonight's council meeting. I pray especially over the people that will come to this microphone and present. I especially pray for those people that maybe aren't used to speaking into microphones. I pray that you would give them great peace. Pray that you would give them great strength and courage to say what is on their hearts and minds, but still to do that with great peace. We pray, Lord, that you would continue to help our community to thrive and be a place that lots of people would want to continue to join so that we can really have a thriving community that makes a difference in all the ways that that's possible. Thank you, Lord, for being here. Thank you for all the ways you care for us. Pray all these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor Akers. I'd like to call to order our August 1st, 2024 council meeting. Welcome to August, and thanks to everyone who showed up and came tonight. It's always great to have a good crowd in the audience. We'll begin with consideration to approve tonight's agenda. Are there any changes, revisions?
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Peppers.
In discussion with the community development staff and the city attorney, we would request that the public hearing for annexation ANX 2403-001, rezoning RZON 2403-002, Master Plan MP 2405-005, and Conditional Use Permit CUP 2404-002 be postponed until October to give the applicant an opportunity to review comments from the county and for staff to review some changes that the applicant would like to see on that site plan. As such, we would also request that the applicant also hold a new public input meeting as required by our process.
Okay. So that's for public hearing B, which is annexation rezoning master plan conditional use permit submitted by Pea Ridge Land Investment. The request is to amend the agenda to postpone that until October. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any additional changes or revisions? Do I have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion, Mayor. I'd like to motion that we approve the agenda with the condition, with the revision that we postpone the public hearing concerning the Pea Ridge property until the first meeting in October.
Okay.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. All members voted for the motion. Ladies and gentlemen, what that means, if you came here just to participate in the public hearing for the Pea Ridge development, you're more than welcome to stay, but you're also welcome to depart at this time if you just came here for that night. And hopefully we'll see you back in October. If you could please exit as quietly as possible, that would be appreciated so we can move on with our agenda. We do have a long agenda tonight. We have a couple of guests and visitors here for presentations, and we'll begin with a presentation of the Downtown Master Plan. We have Kirsten Moat with Modern Mobility Partners. Welcome, Ms. Moat.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for having me tonight to present on the Downtown Master Plan. We started this endeavor just a little over a year ago, and I've got the entire report in slides. I promise you I'm not going slide by slide and making remarks. Instead, I want to hit on a few of the highlights of the final report. So let me get started. So first of all, the overview of this plan, we wanted to look at the downtown area and find opportunities to continue economic development within the city of Canton while maintaining that Main Street charm that downtown Canton has. So this was a combination of transportation improvements as well as development potential, green space improvements, public art improvements. So it was a holistic approach to the downtown, trying to understand how improvements can make this the best Main Street, not just in Georgia, but in the United States. So I'd like to start with our engagement process. And in the report, we note that we met with over 20 stakeholders 3 times during this process. Stakeholders included city staff, county staff, community leaders, business leaders, as well as community interest groups. We also engaged over 100 businesses, residents, community members across 5 in-person engagement activities that started last summer and went through May of this year. And finally, we received over 100 responses to an online survey. So our engagement was robust. It was throughout the process, obtaining feedback from residents and businesses from the beginning to ensure that we were reflecting the community's desires for the downtown area. The first component was the transportation system. So we did a robust analysis of traffic patterns, congestion, safety issues, pedestrian movements, how people are using this space. And we used all of that information and analysis to come up with an overall concept that reduces the lanes in the downtown area, maintains the one-way configuration, adds parking spaces, increases safety for pedestrian crossings, increases safety at intersections, and increases the operational mobility for vehicles and pedestrians, reducing congestion in the afternoon. This includes several intersection improvements, roundabouts, a traffic signal at Railroad Street, and like I said, lots of pedestrian improvements to really encourage and enhance people's experience in the downtown area. The second component of this is land use and urban design. So we wanted to look at zoning and development potential as well as vacancies and infill opportunities in the downtown area, recognizing that the majority of this property is private and development potential comes when those property owners are ready to make changes to their developments. But ultimately, we looked at development challenges, we looked at the natural and historic resources, and came up with a concept plan that helps infill some of the development opportunity in this area. Again, this is conceptual. What we're showing on private properties is not necessarily a recommendation. It's just an idea of what the downtown could look like if more infill and development came to the area and your property owners were interested in some redevelopment. This here is just a rendering of what we think this area could look like with all of these improvements, with the more on-street parking, those really wide, safe pedestrian crossings, improvements to Canton Park with public art installations, and what we can do with some of those infill properties. The majority of this plan focuses on the implementation. So recommendations are many, but some are small in scale and lower cost, and all of them together create a comprehensive plan for the downtown area and can be taken in incremental steps. And we outline which projects are best suited for short-term implementation and long-term implementation. So we go through a variety of different transportation, land use policies, and I really wanted to just kind of highlight that as a part of this focus on implementation, we wanted to include engineering layout. So this kind of gets a jump start on the engineering process for these transportation projects. So this one is the roundabout on the east side of downtown. And this one is an intersection reconfiguration on the west side of downtown. As you can see, where we've outlined some additional parking spots in this particular concept layout. The rest just goes through the other project recommendations. Many of these were in the Transportation Master Plan, which was adopted a couple of years ago. So they've been transferred and updated into this plan. And with that, moving forward, I think Canton is in a really great spot to continue its success and just continue to elevate your presence as far as a main street in a downtown area. And we are just very grateful for the opportunity to work with you. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Moat. We appreciate the thoughtful process. We especially appreciate the community input from our community stakeholders, our residents, our businesses, and our partners. Downtown has come a long way, and the new master plan, it's exciting to see how we continue to maintain the character and unique personality of Canton, but make it safer and more enjoyable for everyone who lives here and visits here. So just, I guess, a question for, and I know looking at this entire plan is quite extensive and quite detailed, and we appreciate that, and we'll need some time to review it, absorb it, and discuss it. I guess, Mr. Peppers, what is kind of is there an intended time frame on review, commenting, and eventually the adoption of this plan?
I think that council probably want to look at this for a period of time, and we can put it back on the agenda for formal approval. Some of the items in here we've actually already started on separate from the plan. But we could easily bring it back to you for adoption later this month or next month. You just tell us how much time you need to digest, and if you have any additional questions.
Okay, sounds great. So we can look at that all in detail, but are there any other questions tonight from Ms. Moat? Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate your presentation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, we have an update from our Cultural Arts Commission, and the chairman, Jamie Foreman, is here to give us a good word. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Council. My name is Jamie Foreman. I am the current chair of the Canton Cultural Arts Commission. For those who might not be familiar with who we are and what we do, I did put the vision up there. I won't read all of it, but essentially we promote public art for the greater good of all things City of Canton. And as I think we just heard from Ms. Moat, she mentioned public art, so it's clear that public art is now not just an accessory or an addition to the way we think about how we're moving forward in Canton. It's clearly woven into the fiber of all of the progress we're making. So our job as a commission is to keep that moving ahead. Before I get into what we're doing, I wanted to go ahead and show you some of the things we've accomplished when our goals that we have set come to fruition. We developed the Public Art Master Plan. That's our blueprint that we use to inform and guide our decisions and our focuses. That master plan was used in alignment with the tenets of the roadmap, the downtown roadmap, and it was also created with a lot of information and input from the community and stakeholders. So that is our guiding force through everything we do. You can find that online if anybody's interested. We endorsed and supported 2 festivals, the West Main Arts Festival and the Peaberry Film Festival. And those were both met with tremendous success, helping bolster the downtown economy. Businesses, were benefiting from it. And we also organized and executed 3 major mural projects. The Bowling Park basketball court mural, the parking deck mural, and the most recent one, the Sunnyside mural. Those all help activate those areas. The most recent one, the Sunnyside mural, especially we got such great feedback from the community and the business owners, emphasizing the inclusivity that they felt from it, that they were flattered, that they were considered. So it just shows you the impact that public art can have. And so, it's such a simple thing. Okay, upcoming projects. So these are the ideas that we have they're in their infancy stages, and the idea tonight is hopefully you get some questions, or we welcome your input and feedback in the future as we move through these. A living wall art install on the North Street dumpster, and sculpture acquisition for Etowah River Park. What's a living wall? A living wall is essentially a wall of plants. It's kind of a unique feature that you see in a lot of downtowns, sometimes inside. This one would be outside. The intention for something like this would be to activate North Street for pedestrian traffic. There are new businesses that are coming up in that area, and so giving something unique to experience and to visit would help bring people to that community. It would improve business and community experience. Like I just said, community input through all of our surveys indicated that downtown is where people really want to see more public art. We've seen it with the murals, so this is some way to bring it in a unique fashion. And in the Public Arts Master Plan, it does specify to try to develop destination through small-scale placemaking investment using novel experiences. Something like this can be done without a lot of damage to a wall. We don't want to touch the wall. We know it's a new structure. But it brings in an element that is a little better than garbage, maybe. The potential budget for something like this is anywhere from $35 to $130 per square foot. There's a lot of factors that go into that. I measured about 145 square feet for a side of the dumpster, which, I don't know, don't trust my math on that one, but somewhere around there. And there are other benefits to putting more plants into the downtown areas. We know it removes air pollutants, improve biodiversity, enhance well-being. We also aligned it with the roadmap tenets, sustaining our natural environment, enhancing historic downtown, and creating great neighborhoods. The second one, sculpture acquisition, specifically for the parks. So the way we get sculptures, there's several ways that cities kind of do it. In this case, I think what we would be doing is the way we do it with murals, where you do a call to artists and you welcome concepts. We specifically, the Public Arts Master Plan mentions using sculpture specifically at the trailheads and in the parks. And here we see it enhances community experience during visits to the parks and trail systems, creates opportunities to educate about our history or natural resources. Depending on what the sculpture is, it's a great opportunity to highlight specific features of the area, whether it's the plants or the history. You get the idea. And it's a great way to integrate art, culture, and recreation to create a more rich visitor experience in our park system. A budget for something like this, you figure starting around $10,000. Something to consider is you do need to establish a base somewhere to put it. So in trying to figure out where we would put the sculpture would be the first consideration. And obviously, materials, who the artist is, size and scope, that influences the budget. And we have the roadmap tenets, sustaining our natural environment and connecting citizens to parks and recreation. So those are the two major things that we're focusing on as a Cultural Arts Commission. It was also recommended to us that what we have is a public arts master plan, but it should be eventually a cultural arts. So over the coming years, we would also like to focus on growing it to include things outside of simply the public arts. So that's it. I appreciate your time. Hopefully you learned a little something, and have a good evening.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Foreman. We appreciate your report and all the work that the the Cultural Arts Commission is doing. Again, it's all volunteer work by our residents, and we appreciate your efforts. Appreciate what you've done. It's exciting to hear the potential projects in the works, and we look forward to that. I want to mention that tonight, Cultural Arts went first, so thank you, Jamie, for going first. But over the next few months, we're going to be having reports from all of our boards and commissions to the council and more importantly, to the public. So what's all the great work's being done and the initiatives and in the works. So appreciate your time and efforts. Any questions for Ms. Foreman? Mr. Johnson?
Maybe you mentioned it, I didn't hear it. How environmentally friendly is that sculpture, and is there any long-term cost associated with maintenance for something like that?
Well, generally, yes, there are maintenance, depending on the sculpture. 'Cause sculptures, this is just an example of a sculpture. This is not the sculpture that we're looking at. So when we would do a call to artists, all of that would be taken into consideration, much like the murals. We know the things that we have to do to maintain and take care of them. The same considerations would be put into sculpture.
Okay, and is that a part of that $10,000 budget?
Well, it's beginning at $10,000 budget. Depending on what would be approved and what would be considered acceptable, all of it would be factored into the budget, yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. So we will now move into our public hearings. After item B was removed, we have two public hearings tonight. We'll begin with item A, public hearing for Master Plan Amendment MPA 2404-010, request to remove the requirement of a water tank within the Laurel Canyon development. Mr. Green?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. As you just stated, this application seeks to remove the requirement of a water tower or water tank in the Laurel Canyon subdivision. In February of 2005, this was one of the conditions that a water tank be constructed at the cost of the developer. At some point in time, depending on how the tank was to operate, the city would reimburse the developer for the cost of the water tank and the maintenance. The 2005 master plan shows the tank to be located in Pod 2 of Laurel Canyon. This is off of Laurel Vista Drive, and it is shown to be in the center of the roundabout. The applicant is looking to have this condition removed and hopes to construct two single-family homes within the center part of the cul-de-sac.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Green. At this point, we will open the public hearing. Is the applicant here or someone to speak in support of this?
Thank
And
you,
we have
Mayor and
for
Council.
support and opposition to this, you have 10 minutes total. So Mr. Peppers will be timing as usual. So
Yeah, this won't take very long. My name is John Gaskin. I'm the applicant on behalf of the LLC that owns this particular parcel. And our company, Patrick Malloy Communities, is the home builder within this parcel. And we would be the home builder in these two lots if this measure was ever approved. But however, I received yesterday, right around lunchtime, comments from staff and Development Services. Bethany Watson is requesting that the master water plan be studied and renewed and reviewed. And I'm not sure what year that study was done. I think it was right about the same time Laurel Canyon started. So in light of that request, it'd be suicidal for me to try to ask for a vote August 16th, because it'd be imminent or certain denial. So what I'd like to request, given this new information, is that we defer our application and until such time either that master water plan study is revised, and at that point, Development Services knows whether or not there's a need for some sort of water tower or pump or whatever on this site, or until such time that Development Services may have a definitive answer about this location prior to the completion of the study, either one of those. So what I'd like to do is request that we do defer the application and take it completely off the agenda August 16th hearing, depending on, obviously, the will of the council. And then we'll wait for the study to come out, and if it says there's a need for a water tank, then you have the information that you need to make a decision. And if it comes out that there's not a need, which I think is what the decision is going to be, then that gives you, again, more decisions on making addressing our request about 2 lots. So I'm here to answer any questions that you may have about the application or anything like that. Anything that I can provide information on. We did have a community meeting a couple of nights ago, and I see a number of people are here. And if I had received this information ahead of time, I would have let them know that I'm going to pull the request. So you'll probably hear a number of people that this is in opposition. This is probably the first time they've heard it tonight. It was only till this afternoon about noon that we were able to come to that conclusion. Okay. So if there's no questions, I will sit down.
Thank you for your comments. I'm not sure we can defer application. We're in the midst of a public hearing.
You could, but or you could proceed with the public hearing and then just put off the vote on it.
Right. We wouldn't be voting tonight anyway, so
Right.
I suggest we proceed with the public hearing. We do have one citizen signed up to speak. We only have one citizen, so I'm not sure if they're here to speak in favor or not, but since we have opened the public hearing, I believe we need to complete it at this time. So thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Again, we have one resident signed up to speak. I'm not sure if that's in support or favor, but Heather Collins, please come forward, state your name and address clearly into the microphone, and thank you.
Good evening, y'all. My name is Heather Collins, and on behalf of the mayor and the city council, thank you so much for allowing us the opportunity to speak. Obviously, we were not expecting that, but I just kind of wanted to we did have a community meeting last night, or 2 nights ago, and just some of the thoughts that we had and the concerns that we have, and a lot of it has to do with the water supply. So I wanted to kind of walk you through that. In 2018, the city of Canton actually hired Black & Beach to do a master plan for the city, and in reviewing that, it maps out the needs that the city had. The concerns are for us as a community are long-term supply, the flow and the force in capacity that the city obviously needs moving forward. That study was based on about 19,000. It was 19,572 is the projected numbers for just 2020. Obviously, as you guys know, the city of Canton, per the last census, has grown significantly post-COVID, which obviously causes considerable concern on the water supply based on that study from Black & Beach. The other thing that we noticed is the residents in that community are already having a flow issue. So the water system, obviously getting up the hill into Laurel Canyon, there are some concerns from the citizens already. So putting additional strain of additional houses and eliminating the obviously opportunity for gravity to help pull water down is a huge concern. And that's stated in your own master plan, but something that we wanted to make sure that the city council understood, like, hey, let's go back to that because there's additional strain there. A couple other things that came up were obviously is the residents, is congestion. We've not seen other communities in Canton, number one, with 2 homes in the middle of a cul-de-sac. I Googled this to see where were there 2 homes in the middle of a cul-de-sac, and I couldn't find one online because obviously typically cul-de-sacs in the green space are left as green space for aesthetics purposes. The other concern is obviously the congestion in that cul-de-sac. If anybody's driven up there and just the construction and one car being on the road, in order for EMS to service that area, there causes some concern for those residents, especially that live on the hill, if police, fire, additional units need to come up there for an emergency. Lastly, if you look at Great Sky, so we did some research around the community, look at Great Sky, they've got multiple areas in their community that have that center green space, and they're just left a green space. So again, we would urge the city to take a look at that. Lastly, I am probably the newest member of Laurel Canyon. We signed on our home this morning. So we're thrilled to be in Canton and very excited about our property. And one of the things is multiple of the homeowners have communicated that live in Laurel Canyon and up in that Horizon section is obviously our concern that putting 2 homes in the middle of a fishbowl is going to absolutely affect our property value. When PMC sold those homes, they sold them at a very heavy premium for the views. And you can look at that online yourselves. Again, looking at those, the goal is to have 2 houses back to back. Based on the HOA rules, we can't actually put a privacy fence. Those people would not be able to put a privacy fence, so every neighbor would be looking at those homes. The concern is if they don't pre-sell those, they'll put fab houses on them or pre-sale homes. And if they don't sell, what's probably going to happen, based on what's happened in the past, if you look at 111 Summit, when they could not sell that house for the $943 that was listed, it dropped over to $720,000 is what they sold it for. The concern for those homeowners that live up there that paid that premium is that our homes might absolutely take a nosedive because that's what's going to be looked at as comp. So if those homes sell for $800,000, $700,000, and the owners that are up there paid well over $1 million for theirs, the property value is going to decrease significantly. The last thing is, and I can tell you there's a lot of people from Laurel Canyon behind me, but the most important thing is the people that are on that circle have not closed on their homes yet. We would not have known about this unless a neighbor told us what was happening, which is a concern because, again, it's about our property values in the long-term water. So we just urge you guys, obviously, we're going to punt the, vote to another day, punt the review. It's about getting maybe Black and Beach back in here to do a full master plan of the city, and then you guys allowing us to come back in and have a conversation about what's best for the longevity of Canton. We plan on retiring here. So we love this community. That's why we built up here. And as taxpayers and people that are going to be here for a long time, the one major concern is our resources, and water being a huge one for us. But the other 2 are obviously concerns as well. So we appreciate your time. Thank you for listening. Thank you for what you do in serving our community.
Thank you, Ms. Collins, and welcome to Canton. So,
Thank you.
You would, if the applicant have time to respond. You have time to respond if you want. I know you've requested deferral, but we are in the midst of the public hearing, so you would have remaining time to respond if you choose to.
Okay. I have no response. If we were going through with our application, obviously I would retort some of the issues. But again, our request is, I'm not going to bore you with trying to continue the conversation other than we would like to defer.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
So at this point, we will close the public hearing. The city attorney Mr. Dyer, is there just on process, should we proceed discussing this or wait? I'm not sure. Deferral, is there going to be a reapplication?
Or yet, but the applicants requested that it be postponed. We can do that tonight, or we can do it at the next meeting. The postponement, y'all can do it multiple times for a longer period of time, but probably tonight it's over. We don't have to do anything tonight, and
Okay.
It could be put on the agenda and then tabled for the vote at that point. Sorry, I'm sort of thinking out loud, but that's sort of maybe logically the better way to do it.
At the next agenda
Is
meeting?
just put it off next time,
Okay.
as opposed to at this point.
Correct. I mean, because we wouldn't take action tonight anyway, so tonight's just the public
Right,
hearing.
and
so.
I mean, I guess everybody now knows you're not going to take action at the next meeting, formally
Do that at
postpone
the
it
next
that
meeting
point.
formally, but those of you who came here tonight know that there won't be any action at the next meeting as well. So you're more than welcome to join us at every meeting, but so again, there's no action needs to be taken, or as I understand, no discussion necessary. Okay. Everyone good moving on? Thank you. So we'll move into our business meeting now. You have in your packet the draft minutes from our July 18th meeting.
Another public hearing.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's true. Don't want to skip over the budget there, so wishful thinking here. So we do have, give a minute if you could depart as quietly as possible. And again, thank you for coming. Our other public hearing is the public hearing of the proposed fiscal year 2025 budget and fee schedule. Ms. Forrester.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So I'm here to give a brief presentation on the proposed fiscal year 2025 budget and fee schedule. Combined, those items online are over 100 pages. So this is a very condensed summary. If you have questions, I'm glad to take those down and get back with you later. You can see the detailed budget and fee schedule, again, online, line by line, by function, by fund. So we'll get started just to briefly cover what we're here to talk about this evening. This is the summary page of the 2025 budget proposal. And as you see, we're asking for a recommended budget of $83,469,025 in total. That is an increase over the fiscal year 2024 budget by $1.1 million. And we'll go into some of those funds in future slides. I put a link on the slide so that when it's made public record, people can click on it and access the full budget. I also wanted to note that we have referenced the city's roadmap, and in order to complete the budget, which covers our creating great neighborhoods, celebrating the diversity of our community, advancing regional economic success, enhancing historic downtown Canton, sustaining our natural environment, connecting citizens to parks and rec, improving infrastructure for future demands, and leading with excellence. I realize that y'all look at the tenants on the back wall every meeting, but sometimes the public may not realize they're there or that they're online in detail. So this is a timeline of the fiscal year 2025 budget process. It's rather lengthy and involves a lot of people. We started in March with City Council having a retreat and some planning sessions. In May, city departments submitted some budget requests, and the tax assessor's office provided the initial property tax digest. In June, we started budget discussions with management, and we also had our first public hearing on the millage rate. In July, we continued with 2 more public hearings to adopt the property tax millage rate, and the draft budget was provided to City Council and posted online for the public. Here we are in August for our first public hearing on the budget. We're only required to have 1, but we can have more if you desire. We would like to ask for an adopted budget by August 31st. We'll be here again on August 15th if you're accepting of this budget proposal. In October 1, the fiscal year 2025 budget will be implemented. Just to recap why we go through budgets, it's good practice and it's the law. So on the left, you'll see it's required to have a balanced budget for governmental funds. The general fund is most of our operating expenses, and then we have special revenue and capital projects funds. And those largely cover big expenses with a long life. Special revenue funds have revenues that are restricted for specific purposes. They can be used for operating or capital, but it's legal requirements that we have to comply with. And the capital projects funds are used strictly to build capital investments. Enterprise funds, those are water, sewer, stormwater, and sanitation funds. They're run like businesses, and a balanced budget is optional. Fiduciary funds, this is court fund, and that is also an optional item, but we'll be covering that in future slides. So here are the funds, all of them except the general fund. So again, majority of these are capital projects funds. And you can see in the bottom right-hand corner that overall our capital projects budget is decreasing by just over 2% from fiscal year 2024. There's some major differences. If you look at the ARPA fund, we're consuming most of that money and completing projects. In fiscal year 2025, we expect to only have $19,995 in ARPA money left to expend. The TAD fund is still building. Hotel Motel tax fund is rather steady with a slight increase. Rental car tax fund significantly increased, but that's based on using reserves. Canton Building Authority is all debt. SPLOST 7 is wrapping up. Actually, June of this year was the last month for receipts for the SPLOST 7. We'll now start collecting SPLOST 8 monies. Impact fee fund, you'll see, is lower estimated for 2025 than the current year because most of the groundbreaking activity you're seeing around the city has already paid impact fees. And future projects, if you recall, we had an abeyance for some time. We don't anticipate as many impact fees next year. Water and Sewer Fund, we're wrapping up the construction on the wastewater pollution control plant, and we hope to do some more work on the water treatment plant. And the other funds are minor in activity, but the detail again is online and full. This is just a graphic depiction of all of our funds. So you can see that the general fund is 33% of the city's total budget. 67%, which we just covered on the previous slide, are all other funds. In addition to the budget, I mentioned we have a fee schedule that's online. Again, it's about 30 pages. I wanted to touch on a few highlights that are in that fee schedule that were not present in the city manager's memo that he gave earlier on the budget. So in the fee schedule, on page 5, we're asking to remove the annual parking pass at the reservoir launch. That's a $50 fee. Staff would like to recommend that we stop charging for access to the reservoir at that launch site effective January 1st. The city does not charge access fees to any other parks, and sometimes people can go to the park and you'll find that many participating activities are not paying. So we think it might just be best to waive that fee altogether at January 1. Page 19 references updated park and field rental fees to reflect the special event policy that was passed earlier this year. And page 30 references changes to water deposits and increased residential irrigation and commercial water and sewer rates. So I wanted to talk about these items because I thought you might have questions. Regarding the deposits, I want to say that we don't consider that a fee because if people pay their water bill, they get their deposit back. One thing we had previously done was a zero deposit for owner occupants of residential properties and a $100 deposit for tenants. We've found that it doesn't really matter if you're an owner occupant or a tenant. What matters if you prefer to pay your bill or not. So we're proposing that all residential accounts have a $125 deposit. Again, if they pay the bill, they get the deposit back at the end of their ownership or utility billing. If they don't, the city will apply that $125 deposit to any outstanding balances. We're also proposing commercial accounts, which had previously been charged a $100 deposit, be increased to $250. Ultimately, we'd like to start increasing that commercial deposit rate because we think about the commercial accounts that may leave us in a pinch, apartments, hotels. When they change ownership or leave a bill unpaid, it's pretty substantial. So that we're going to take some baby steps. We'll start at $250, and in the coming years, we'll look to increase those for commercial accounts. We also would like to propose increasing the hydrant meter deposit. It's currently $3,000. We would like to increase that to $4,500 just to cover the cost of the equipment if it's failed to be returned. Water and sewer rate increases are proposed at 2.5%, which is a continuation of the 2019 rate study. And that's less than inflation, and that's the same rate that we've been increasing water and sewer fees for the last several years. Again, less than inflation. What does that mean to a resident? For the average monthly consumption for a family of 4, that 2.5% increase is going to increase the water and sewer bill by $1.33 a month. That comes to $15.96 per year. And I'm glad to provide a breakdown if anyone has additional questions on what the water and sewer rate increase would look like. And that would be in effect October 1, if this is approved. Now we're going to talk about the general fund. And one thing I would like to point out is, well, these are the expenditures. And it is a slight increase, 8.85% increase overall. But if you'll look, we do have some new functions that we've broken out. And the largest part of the cost and increase to this general fund is salaries. So as was mentioned in the city manager's memo, total salaries and wages for the city of Canton is recommended to increase approximately $850,000. This increase is related to the creation of 3 new positions, as well as the implementation of the compensation and classification study by Condrey and Associates. This is where the general fund, again, this is mostly operations, spends its money. If you look, public safety is 56%. That is the police department and the payment to the county for fire services. Elected officials make up 1% of the budget. Admin, IT, building maintenance, finance is included in that group, 16%. Engineering, which is a new function we've broken out separately, just 1%. Municipal court, another 1%. Public works, that's your streets and traffic lights, 8%. Arts and parks, that's your theater and park services. Community development is your planning and zoning. Your economic development and your Main Street development functions. And the 3% contingency there in green. This is where the general fund receives its income. And again, you'll notice the right-hand bottom corner, it's an 8.85% increase. And a majority of that increase is the use of fund balance to cover expenditures. And again, I'll point out that was mentioned in the city manager's memo that the 2025 budget was built upon using $2,403,744 in fund balance. If the city did not have a fund balance to utilize, the budget would have required a millage rate of 6.586 mills. This is where the money comes from in the general fund. And I want to point out one thing here that I think is pretty important, that property taxes are 45% of the general fund's revenues. Also, you can look at fines and forfeitures, just 6%. That's your municipal court and your red speed. Together, that's just 51%. Let's go back and look at public safety, 56%. So I just want to remind everyone, when we're talking about the millage rate and property taxes, that item alone does not even cover the cost of public safety. We rely on all of our revenue sources in the general fund to cover the entire general fund budget. And this is the estimated ending fund balance for the current fiscal year, 2024, and fiscal year 2025 with the proposed budget fee schedule that is available in full online. We are thinking that the current year may come in at around $20 million, but next year, with the proposed utilization of fund balance, it should come in pretty close to the 2023 fiscal year in balance. So we're trying to keep everything in check to maintain the lowest millage rate we can and utilize the fund balance where it's responsible. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Forrester. At this point, we will open the public hearing. We have 2 residents signed up to speak. Again, if you would come to the podium, state your name, address clearly into the microphone. Mr. Chris Everett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council, for allowing me to speak. In 2020, the budget was 53,300,000. 2025's budget is 83,469,000, which is an increase of $30,202,000, which is 57%. Now, embedded in there, if you focus just on property tax over the same time frame, property taxes in 2020 were $5,890,000. 2025 from the schedule is $11,630,000, and that's a $5,740,000 increase, or 97%. So you got the budget going up 57%, revenue was 97%. And as far as the use of funds, I want to go to actual data, actual use of the funds. 2021, you budgeted $1,547,000. Actual number from your schedules is $0. 2022, you budgeted $1,959,000. From your schedules, actual is $0. In 2023, you budgeted $1,613,000, used none. 2024, you got $823,000 per your schedule. To date, you've used none. So saying that you've got to balance the budget by using $2.4 million in 2025, I don't get it. I just don't get it. You also said you were going to use $500,000 in 2021 from the Water Enterprise Fund. You used $0. So you're budgeting all this revenue coming in and actually not spending it. And I applaud you for not spending it. But you don't have to keep it in the budget. Just budget real numbers. Again, the fund balance is not decreasing, it's growing. So where are you using it? In all of the narratives on the transmittal memo for the budget, I see this line that says, and growth comes at a cost. Well, if it's costing me, the taxpayer, money to grow, stop growing. Just stop. And I'd also like to ask you to make some kind of information available online that can be easily looked at as far as the fund balance and use of funds. I'm used to GAAP accounting, and to try to track through governmental accounting to get at the fund balances is an exercise. Per Ms. Forrester's slides, and I wrote this down quick, so these numbers might not be totally accurate. While the 2025 budgeted expenses were $27.8 million versus the 2024 budget only goes up 8%, that's one thing. But if you compare it to 2023, which is on the same slide, it goes up 22% in 2 years. So if you want your legacy to be, you've increased revenue 97% and increased expenses 55%, have at it. But this is not fiscal responsibility. That's all I got.
Thank you, Mr. Everett. Mr. Thomas Weaver.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, my name is Thomas Weaver. I reside at 131 Old Marietta Road here in Canton, Georgia. Probably should come as no surprise what I'm going to share with council this evening. However, for the benefit of all whom are attendants within the audience, I submitted correspondence to the city requesting that this mayor and its city council review the budget in approbation of a legislative occurrence passed by the Georgia General Assembly this session that adversely affects the authority of the city post-July 1 to impose regulatory fees on federal firearm licensees whom may operate in the city. But I know what you're thinking. It's not an occupation tax, and I know the difference between a tax and a fee. However, my point of my contention is even though the fees that are assessed are at parity to recover costs that are incurred by the city for a service that's rendered, and I guess this would tie into the fee schedule because you could argue that's not a tax, therefore it's not a mandate, right? It's a fee, it's a service, it's voluntary, but it's not when it's required under our ordinances. So to the extent that there are one, perhaps two such licensees within the city, my concern would be that if the city cannot recover those fees, because it's statutorily barred from doing so per the General Assembly, then the city would have to look to other sources within the budget unless the city were to choose to just eat those services through the nose. I suppose that can be taken from contingency. It's built into the budget. But that's the first concern. The second is I had the privilege to sit down with Ms. Teresa Fitz and her office the other day, and we looked at some of the municipal court fines that's levied by our municipal court. I pointed out to her that the statutes prohibit the municipal court from imposing fines in excess of $1,000. We looked through her computer system, and alas, we were able to find a few fines that the city, not as a full surcharge when you add on the state-mandated fees, but the city's assessed fine at the city rate is in excess of $1,000. And if any part, piece, or portion of any function or department or object or any part of the budget is relying on those excess municipal court funds to be there based on those fines at the city, if an alleged hypothetical criminal defendant were to file for a writ of certiorari to a higher appellate court and were to prevail based on that statute, and the city would be barred from collecting that excess fee or that excess fine, then how would that adversely impact our budget where our budget relies on those municipal court fines for being there? And I know that for the most part, those municipal court fines are part of our municipal court expenditures, which are just north of $100,000 this year. So those are two concerns that I have. They tie in jointly with both the budget and the fee schedule that you're proposing tonight. It would be my hope that this council would vote to voluntarily. I know that it's required to do so for the millage. The budget and the fee schedule is optional, but it would be my hope that you would allow for a second public comment and input period, specifically a public hearing for this later this month, because I think that these are just two big decisions to be made just in one bite, but that's for council to consider. But I just wanted to go on record in front of the public to say, don't say I didn't tell you so.
Thank you, Mr. Weaver. At this point, we will close the public hearing and open up to council for discussion. Mr. Peppers, I know Ms. Forrester referenced your memo that you sent to council. Would you like to refer to that or any other comments before?
Yes, sir, I would be happy to. I will not read all of it, but I will go over a few pieces of it. The general fund budget for the city of Canton is recommended to increase from $25.5 million to $27.8 million for the next fiscal year. The $2.2 million increase in spending is offset by increased revenue collections, property taxes, which is $620,000. Motor vehicle taxes on new vehicle sales at $208,000. Franchise fees for utilities at $118,000. Occupational taxes or business licenses at $136,000. Insurance premium taxes $417,000. Sold assets $100,000, and use of fund balance $2.4 million. The largest decrease in revenues will be $1.1 million in funds cleared in the current fiscal year from the American Rescue Plan Act. Payments to Cherokee County for fire service will increase to a little over $7 million, or $425,000 more than last year. The city operates with 139 full-time employees. Currently, 127 of those positions are filled. Of those, 10 are paid fully through enterprise funds, 7 in the water and sewer fund, and 3 in the sanitation fund. The average hourly rate of pay for non-exempt full-time employees is $26.32 per hour. The average annual pay for hourly sworn police officers, those that work 2,236 hours annually, is $70,135, and civilian hourly employees who work an average of 40 hours a week earn an average of $60,006. This class of hourly employees includes police officers through the rank of lieutenant, public works technicians, court clerks, inspectors, support managers, finance clerks, administrative assistants, utility billing, customer service representatives, technology support, community development, customer service representatives, records clerks, investigators, public outreach staff, and maintenance. The total salaries and wages for the City of Canton is recommended to increase approximately $850,000 in FY 2025. The increase is related, again, to the creation of 3 new positions as well as the implementation of our compensation and classification study that was done by Condry and Associates. That study is an update to a study that was done in 2014. Under the study that was approved by the council in November by Condry, the consultant reviewed and compared the City of Canton positions, including job duties, Fair Labor Standards Act classification for exemption status, and compensation ranges with 14 local governments in the surrounding market. Those included the cities of Ackworth, Alpharetta, Dunwoody, Gainesville, Holly Springs, Johns Creek, Kennesaw, Lawrenceville, Marietta, Milton, Roswell, Suwanee, Woodstock, and as well as Cherokee County. The recommendation for our law enforcement was to eliminate the step and grade plan that we put in place several years ago. And frankly, I went back to the consultants and said we weren't going to do that. We've had a number of law enforcement agencies across Metro Atlanta reach out to us wanting to know how we stay nearly full staff all the time when they have 10%, 15%, 20% in vacancies. Part of it is that we have a plan, and that plan is that for every year of service you are in any rank within the department, you see an increase in your pay for longevity. By taking advantage of their scales, what we asked them to do was come back to us and tell us what the entry level average for a police officer would be in that market. The entry level for next year, starting October 1, if council approves the budget, for a police officer right out of the academy is just north of $59,000. If you go back to 2015, the starting pay for a police officer was $37,000. So you'll see that the market is driving significantly the cost of labor in public safety. Additionally, Condry did come back and made recommendations for the city to change the way we handle our current scales. So right now the city has pay grades that are 1 through 25. The Condry study takes that from 1 to 27. Back during COVID, the city adopted a policy which was that full-time positions start at $20 an hour. That was in competition with what we were seeing in the market. It's hard to hire someone to work in public works that handles streets and parks and pay them less than they could make an hour at McDonald's or Chick-fil-A or Walmart or any of those competitors. So we raised that entry level to $20 an hour. Part of our plan moving forward this year is to implement pay scales for public works. We have 2 groups of employees within the city's function that have a large number of employees that do similar job duties: police department, public works. So by implementing those pay plans in place over the last few years, we've basically been able to keep somewhat near full staff in both of those organizations. That's not something that our competitors have seen. If you go to the sheriff's department, for instance, right now, they've got 50-plus vacancies in their department. I think we're down to 5 or 6 right now in our police department, and we've got 3 or 4 individuals who are in the process of the hiring process right now. Condry came back and they looked at every single position in the city and they made recommendations as to what the range for that position would be. and where they would fit within that range. That's great information when they're looking at the position, but what we have to do is we have to look back at the position and look at the employee that's in the position, how long they've been in that position, and where they should fit within that range. And so one of the recommendations that is made to you in the budget this year is shifting employees who don't fit in a pay plan with Public Works or a pay plan with the police department where they need to be within that particular range. There are some jobs that were elevated in classification based upon the duties and research. And so the overall totality of that project is about an $850,000 cost to the city on the personnel side. A number of those increases that you look at when you look at department by department spending flow back to that personnel cost. I will also mention to you that, you know, part of the issue that we face every year on fund balance is projects. Projects that used to be faster projects are not as fast anymore. For example, you'll hear later tonight from Ms. Watson about the traffic signal project at Reinhardt College Parkway and Reservoir Drive. We will budget that project. The problem is we're at the mercy of companies as it relates to getting in the mast arms and the signalization. When we put in our last traffic signal, that project from start to finish took well over a year. And so you may budget for a project in 1 year, you may not complete it until the next year. Well, those dollars have to transfer into the next year, and so we individually pull those out of fund balance. Some projects get delayed. Some projects are occasionally eliminated at some point because we'll get a bid back in and it's much more expensive than the project initially was paced at. Additionally, our budget includes a 10% increase in employee health benefits. That's just the employer share of that insurance. There's a 3% increase in workers' compensation. There's a 7% increase in all other insurance, just as you see it at your own personal insurance policies. Replacement values are up. It takes longer. If you have a catastrophic claim, you're going to see that replacement value go up. We have in here 8% increase in electricity, and that's just in the general fund. There's about a 40% electricity increase in the water and sewer fund because as we bring on those new sections of our wastewater treatment plant, that increases the cost. We've doubled our operation basically at the wastewater treatment plant, and so we're going to see an increase on that side in electricity as that project comes on board. There's an 18% increase in retirement expenses. Some of that's based upon higher wages. Some of it's based upon our retirees living at a longer rate. There's a number of capital projects that are included in the budget, and I'll just quickly go through some of these. The traffic signal at Reservoir Drive and Reinhardt College Parkway. All the work we're doing on State Route 140, that's a state highway. In many communities, the city is not participating in state projects. They rely wholly on the State Department of Transportation to improve their roadways. 5 years ago, the city of Canton said, we got to do something on this roadway. We know we don't control it. Let us help drive the project. And so we have about 20% of the cost of that project that goes through every year. We've got the West Main Street Pedestrian Corridor project that will be starting this next year. We've got master plan projects for transportation. We've got a continuation of our Parks and Recreation Master Plan. We've got the design and replacement of the Etowah River Park canoe launch, groundbreaking in our South Canton Park, a number of street resurfacing projects. I think we have somewhere around $2.5 million in paving projects scheduled for next year. Stormwater upgrades throughout the city and including some stormwater projects in our parks. We have projects in our water treatment plant and our facilities. We're working right now on our brand new pump station, an improved water line across 575. There's lighting and sound projects at the Canton Theater. We've got quotes back to institute a citywide security camera system in our parks. That's also part of that. If you maybe Mr. Ingram can go back to the slide, but if you go back to that particular slide right there about fund balance, the biggest difference that you're going to see is between 2021 and today. And that difference is roughly the American Rescue Plan Act funds. The city has received most of those funds in the general fund. Those are one-time funds. Those funds do go away. And there's a list of specific projects that the federal government recommends using those funds for. So, for example, we have a loan out right now of $2.8 million to the Housing Authority to kickstart their project at Tanner Place. Some of that comes from fund balance. We have a number of SPLOST projects in our next SPLOST that we're able to kickstart using fund balance. And if SPLOST revenues come in, we can pull that back into fund balance after those projects are completed. Fund balance is not necessarily a cash reward at the end of the year. Sometimes it's a delay of a project. Sometimes it's a continuation of an existing project over multiple budget years. A lot of our fund balance has to do with capital funds. As always, I'm happy to have conversations with any of you, answering questions you might have. If we have residents that have questions, I'm happy to do that as well. Every month, we provide to you our financials. The financials for June are in this month's budget packet. Those come out every month. They're published on our website. They're published as part of our agenda management system, so they're available to the public. And our finance department's always happy to answer any questions that anybody from the public might have, or you as well. At this time, I'd answer any questions that you might have.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Peppers. Thank you for those insights. Thanks to the Finance Department, our department heads, for their work on the budget. It's always a monumental task, but we appreciate it. Again, when there's no action on the budget tonight, it's take your time the next couple of weeks reviewing the 100 pages of details. I know you're in the midst of that. Again, the budget is published online. Public can read every line item in that 100 pages as well. Very transparent about our budget and how we're spending taxpayer money and other revenue sources. So, any questions for Ms. Forster or Mr. Peppers this evening? Ms. McGrew?
Thank you. I was wondering about the water deposit increase. And for commercial property, that's going up to $250
Yes,
from $100?
From 100, yes.
Okay. Might that possibly have an adverse effect on small business? Would it not benefit us and the businesses to look at the possibility of having a water deposit based on number of employees, say 20 or fewer employees would have a lesser deposit? I know Best Buy can afford $250, but
Sure.
Rosie's Cafe might not be able to.
If you were going to do a tiered approach on deposits, you would want to do it based upon potential. So you might have a business that only has 2 or 3 employees, but it might be a laundromat, for instance. Well, a laundromat's going to have a lot more use of water than potentially an office user that might have 4 or 5 times the number of employees. Mm-hmm. If the laundromat leaves with an outstanding bill, it will impact the city far greater than if that office left, so to speak. So if the idea is that council would like to consider some type of tiering as it relates to commercial deposits, that's certainly something that we could look at, but we would probably want to do it based upon a potential use of water. Is that a fair assessment, Ms. Forrester?
Yes. Linda Buchanan in our water department did research with several other authorities on the deposit rates for residential and commercial accounts. One thing that she's considered recommending is different rates based on meter size. But you also have to consider what, as Mr. Peppers mentioned, each individual unit and business. For instance, bakeries use a tremendous amount of water, and you might only have a handful of employees. Restaurants use a tremendous amount of water, whether it's a sandwich shop or a chain that stays open practically 24 hours a day and that the parking lots are always full. So that's one thing we wanted to put that idea out to you so you can discuss, maybe be open to looking at different rates for meter sizes or based on history of consumption per address.
Great. Excuse me. Good points about the restaurants using a lot of water. So for another example, an office with 4 accountants in it that do accounting for businesses and the general public. So I just wanted us to think about those smaller businesses. And one other question while you're here, or Mr. Peppers either. Could you refresh my memory on what impact fees are used for?
So impact fees are collected and used based upon the city's impact fee study and analysis. If an individual is building something new within the city, they're assessed an impact fee as part of that development. It varies between commercial and residential properties. So a residential property is going to pay an impact fee that includes police, fire, parks, transportation, and then there's a small administrative fee that's collected on all impact fees that goes towards the administration of those fees and the reconciling and auditing of those every year. On a commercial project, they're going to pay police, fire, the admin fee, and transportation, but they don't pay a recreation fee. Impact fees have to be used for added capacity. So, for example, if you have a development that is new to the city, then the determination would be what is that impact going to be on capacity. So every year in the fall, the council reviews our capital impact element, our CIE. We're required to submit that to the state for their review, and normally we review it, adopt it in the fall, send it to the state. They send back any comments to us, and then we have to ratify it again somewhere around January or February. That particular study basically shows how we anticipate spending fees for growth over the next 5 years. So it'll have a list of particular transportation projects. It'll have a list of capital expenses in the police department or fire or parks. For it to be a capital expense, it has to be something that has at least a 10-year life. So, for example, we cannot use those fees to buy police cars. We cannot use those fees to buy ammunition for the police department. We can use those fees for major infrastructure or facility improvements at the police department. We could use those fees potentially for a fire truck that has a 10-year lifespan. We can't use the fees to resurface a road, but we can use the fees to add lane capacity or sidewalks or make intersection improvements that improve capacity along a roadway. We cannot use the fee to cut the grass at a park, but we can use the fee to add equipment, playground equipment, facilities, or to purchase additional park lands.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay. Thank you, everyone. So now we'll move into our business meeting. Again, you have in your packet the draft minutes from our July 18th meeting. Are there any revisions, additions, or motions?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. All members voted for the motion. We have a couple informational items this evening. Item A is review of the June financials. Ms. Forrester.
So I'll be brief on the financials because there was not any much difference from month to month in June. That is the close of the third quarter of the year. So when you're looking through the financials, it's good to reference a percentage use total at or around 75%, preferably higher for revenues, especially those revenues that come in at the beginning of the year, and a lower percentage use for expenditures. But overall, most funds seem to be on target. And I'm glad to answer any questions.
Any questions for Ms. Forrester? Okay. Second item, again, is for your information only, is the upcoming adoption of new zoning map in response to Unified Development Code amendments. And then we have our community development intern, Tyler Peoples, here to present.
Yeah, if you would just give me 1 second, I'd like to introduce him.
Please.
This is Tyler. He's our community development intern, as you mentioned. He's been working with us this summer. He's been working on this project, helping Ken out a little bit with the housing survey and a few other projects. As part of his he's a student at Georgia State, so as part of his internship, he's going to do the informational update and then handle the public hearing next week. Obviously, he's never presented in front of council, so if y'all have any questions, make sure they're hard. Don't be afraid to just lay it on them. Let's give them a learning experience, all right?
Oh, awesome. So it's initiation and hazing for Mr. Peoples. So
Good evening, Mayor
we'll
and
take
Council.
it. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council, and thank you for the kind introduction, Mr. Turner. As you are aware, on April 4th of this year, Council unanimously voted to adopt an ordinance that deleted several zoning classifications and all mentions of them from the Unified Code. These included ORT, Office Residential Transition, NC, Neighborhood Commercial, PD, Plan Development Business Office, and Plan Development Traditional Neighborhood Development. Of the 124 affected parcels that were identified from this deletion, 122 were zoned Office Residential Transition. These are primarily located along the Marietta, Waleska, and Hospital Road corridors. The remaining 2 were zoned Neighborhood Commercial. These 2 are located along Hickory Flat Highway just west of Interstate 575. There were no parcels in the city zoned Plan Development Business Office and Traditional Neighborhood Development. Staff have carefully reviewed and visually inspected the parcels that were affected by this amendment and have determined several recommendations for alternative zoning based on several factors, including lot size, current use, as well as contiguity across proximal and neighboring parcels. Additionally, staff is using this opportunity to potentially take any government and quasi-government owned parcels within the city that are currently not zoned for special use and potentially rezone those for special use if it's applicable. Property owners regarding ORT and NC rezonings have been notified via mail, and there has been a public hearing advertised in the legal organ. And at this time, we are still receiving public comment from the owners of these parcels, and taking that into consideration, we hope to provide a final zoning map before the public hearing and for potential later adoption.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Peoples. Well done. So
Very much. Thank you.
I don't know, staff, you should be worried there about, your positions there. You did that quite well. So again, we will have the public hearing at the next meeting and council discussion following that. So we appreciate the updates and the heads up there. And again, welcome aboard. So, do we have any announcements this evening? We had no one sign up for the 10-minute public input. So we have no old business, so we will move into new business. We have 3 items that just for discussion only this evening. There's no action required on these 3 items. But we'll give an item A, discussion of professional services agreement with Brown and Caldwell. Ms. Watson?
Thank you. I will say I'm a little jealous. Tyler did a great job.
I know.
I've been doing this for a while, and I still can't get up here and
he did
do it great all the time. So we have previously had a professional services agreement with Brown and Caldwell, and we currently have 3 other demand services contracts, but we have a lot of projects going on, so having more demand services contracts is a benefit to us. Our most recent demand services contract with them expired about 3 years ago, so this is just kind of re-upping that so that we can do some more water and sewer projects with them. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Any questions? If not, we will move into item B, discussion of the award of the Reinhardt College Parkway at Reservoir Road Intersection Improvement Project to Glosson Enterprises in the amount of $702,690.
Thank you. So this project is something that we've been working on for quite some time now. And on July 9th, we received 10 bids for this project. As you can see from the memo, they're all pretty close in range, with the low bidder being Glosson Enterprises, with a bid of $702,690. And I will point out that our engineer's estimate was actually $940,000, so this is a good bit less than that. I have did call some other communities to make sure that this contractor did good work, and I have got good reports. So I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. It sounded like we had 10 bids, which is great, and resulted in a good result. Again, we almost had $1 million budgeted for this item, correct? So that's good work. Any questions for Ms. Watson on this? Will we be looking at approving that at the next meeting?
Yes, sir.
Any questions for Ms. Watson?
One question.
Mr. Toller?
Ms. Watson, in light of the fact that it is $702,690, would you mind just going over some of the very high-level line items, if you will, that kind of lead to that price?
Yes. Let me grab the...
I'm sure I probably should have prepped you for that.
A second.
Ms. Watson, you need to get an intern on board so they can answer this question. So,
so the largest line items are going to be for the actual traffic signal installation, which is close to $100,000. There is some owner's contingency in there for $75,000, and then there are also traffic control and grading are the other large items, and then just a number of items for concrete sidewalk, concrete medians, curb and gutter, landscaping, testing, erosion control, permanent grassing, and then signing and markings.
Okay, thank you. These things are never cheap.
any other questions? Okay, item C, discussion of Harmon Park mini pitch programming. Mr. Dodson, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. I dare not get an intern now after hearing that. So,
everyone's going to want an intern now. So,
I'm here tonight to discuss the possibility of programming at the Harmon Park mini pitch. Before I get into more of the details about that, go a little bit in the past and kind of where we're at right now. So prior to the mini pitch and the remodel of Harmon Park, we partnered with Canton Baseball to allow them to use the facilities for baseball games, practices. Along with Canton Baseball, we also partnered with a few travel organizations to allow them to use the facilities for certain nights of the week to practice on. Jump forward to now. We have a brand new facility. Love it. Appreciate the Mayor and Council support on that. We have partnered with Canton Baseball. They will be utilizing the facility Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and possibility of some Saturdays for games, league night games. I plan to do this partnership with them not only this fall, but as long as I'm part of this, they will have the ability to utilize the facility. Along with Canton Baseball, we have partnered with a travel organization, and by partnership, I mean they have agreed to a contract to pay for the facilities on Tuesdays and Thursday nights. This partnership will be by a season basis. Currently, they are using 24 days this fall on the Tuesdays and Thursday nights, and hope to re-up this contract going into spring of next year with double, if not more, the amount of night practices. We have been approached, staff has been approached by an organization to hold programming out of the mini pitch at Harmon Park. Staff is all about the more recreation we have. I'm all on board with it. We are kind of looking for guidance from Mayor and Council on if they would like to entertain the possibility of programming at the mini pitch at Harmon Park. Staff will make it work from there as long as Mayor and Council is on board with this. And I will answer any questions regarding the idea of the programming.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Dodson. I know we're just discussing this in concept tonight. I guess my concept, I agree more program is better than less. And you mentioned partnerships with other groups. Again, I think partnerships are great. How does it benefit our residents? How our practice is informed by our Parks and Recs master plan too. So we're kind of working one plan, but treating all these partnerships equally. And if we do take any of our assets offline that are there to serve the public, how are we compensating? Or who's paying to lease those components of our Parks and Recs? And again, just how we're treating everybody equally in that, and what our systems and standards we have in place to do that. But again, how does it also support our overall goals in our Parks and Recs master plan that we've been looking at? Any comments on that, specifics? I guess if we got into individual partnerships or agreements, we would just kind of have to look at those. But I don't know if what I just said make any sense, but
well, I think what I can do prior to the next meeting is do some research on what other locations, other cities, municipalities, what they charge, how they, if they do partnerships, what those look like. I do think there is something to be said about some sort of fee structure, maybe not necessarily, we're not trying to repay back what we have invested in these facilities, but the ongoing maintenance that some of these facilities will require over the next few years and 5 to 10 years and things like that. Part of why I do like having so much activity in the parks is, it polices itself when you have people there. And having activity at the parks is a lot more healthy for the young generation, things like that. So I'm all about making it as crowded and, you drive by and you see the lights on at the ball field and things like that, especially when we got such a shiny new park to show off. So if it, pleases Mayor and Council, I will go and get some ideas of what these partnerships and these costs, and have them, if not be able to send it to you prior to the next meeting, stand here and give you an idea what those costs look like. And if it's something that Mayor and Council agree to, we will bring it back and implement it to our fee schedule, and update that as well.
I think that makes a lot of sense, and we look forward to your guidance on that. We are proud of our parks, and we've invested heavily in them, and we want to maintain them. I know there are other cities out there that use their parks and recreation resources as a revenue source, and again, we are not at that point. That's not our interest, but how do we deliver the best parks and services, parks and recreation services to our citizens at the lowest possible cost or no cost of that instance. So we look forward to your updates and recommendations, and we can proceed from there. Awesome. Thank you. Mr. Peppers.
Good evening. A couple items on transportation tonight. We currently are working on a sewer main extension project on Killian Street. So there's a little bit of a detour there that'll probably be in place through the end of next week. Tomorrow we'll have a section of Scott Mill Road that's closed where we had that water main break. Now it's been over a week ago, where we're doing a patch job out there with paving. So that'll be closed, but they'll do it in between the hours of school so they can get that project done. Did want to let you know, and I think we've had some posts go out about this as well on social media. Our traffic signal at the Teasley area had a lightning strike to it, and so Over the last couple of weeks, it's been operating in a flash mode, but we knew that that would not be possible with school starting back. So our police department's been out and will be out there at the intersection at Hickory Log Creek Drive and Reservoir Drive, working through that until we can get that signal back and operating. When they're not out there, it will still be in a flash mode. Is it on a timer now? Okay. We've been working with a consultant trying to come up with some different solutions out there, but we're aware of that signal and we're working through the process to get that fixed. I wanted to note that we had an RFP that closed earlier this week for audits. As you remember, it was time for us to put out a proposal for the company that handles the city's annual audits. We did have 4 responses to that RFP, so I think tomorrow and the first of next week, our staff will start reviewing those proposals so that we can bring that to you. We'll need to get that person on board before the end of September so that they can start the next fiscal audit for us. Of course, it was back to school today, and so I do want to brag on a number of our departments for the work that they've been doing to prepare for that. Police department, making sure that they've had extra presence in those school zones and assisting with that. Public Works, making sure that everything's cut and ready to go. And then also every year, as I have always done, I try to reach out to the principals for the schools that are in the city, let them know if they have any needs, they can reach out to us. Sometimes the needs are they need someone to speak at a career day, or they need someone to read to a classroom of kindergartners, and so your staff here is always willing to fill in on those gaps as well. I want to give a shout out to Adam and the many of our staff that worked at the River Rock concerts over the weekend. Great turnout for that. We had a good crowd. Weather cooperated very well with us this year. It was a little hot on the second day, but we had a good crowd for that. Adam's done a great job on that particular event for us. But it wouldn't be possible without Public Works and the police department. This year we had a command center from emergency management, of course our friends at the fire department, communications, going out there, participating, getting photos and videos and hyping that up on social media. This week, tomorrow, is the Troubadour Project for First Friday. This will be our August 1st Friday downtown. Saturday will be Pie Day at the Farmers Market. So you might want to come out and enjoy that. This past weekend at the Farmers Market, we had the Tomato Sandwich Festival. So if you saw the tomatoes around town, that was sort of guerrilla marketing to push people towards that event. They had a good crowd. I believe Mr. Tolan got to sample bread.
That's right.
He got to taste bread. They also had Watermelon Day at the Farmers Market as well. We're getting towards that busy time of the year where we're trying to wrap up the fiscal year. And as the mayor mentioned, we will be having presentations from a variety of our boards coming before you, letting you know what they've worked on in the past year and what they're going to be working on for the next year. That will help give you a little bit more information about some of the expenditures in parts of the budget, and also an opportunity to hear directly from your appointees who volunteer to serve on those committees. At this time, I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have for me or anything you need me to look into.
Thank you, Mr. Peppers. Any questions, Mr. Peppers, this evening? I've got one. When can we consider an internship for the mayor's position here? So I think having an intern to answer all the public's questions and disagreements might be a good practice for someone in political science. So thank you, Mr. Peppers. Appreciate it. So I have nothing to report this evening. So I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion to adjourn.
All at once there. Go second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Multicultural festival. What kind of booze?